Hi everyone, my name is Manal Al-Fayez and you're watching From Scratch. On today's episode of From Scratch, we're making beef stock. With the beef stock, we're going to use it to make a traditional French onion soup. For the beef stock, what you're going to need are some beef bones, mirepoix. So for that, you're going to need some brown onions, carrots, and celery. You're going to need some tomato paste and a bouquet garni. So for that, what you're going to need are some leeks, some fresh thyme, parsley stems, some bay leaf, cloves, and black peppercorns. I'm going to start off by wearing my gloves to transfer my bones, my beef bones, onto my tray. I have my oven preheated at a very hot temperature, so my oven reaches up to 250 degrees Celsius. So you want to reach the highest temperature, and what you want to do is give the bones a very nice golden brown color. So I'm going to transfer the tray over here, grab the bones, lay them out flat onto your tray. And this is just a mix of beef bones. You've got a lot of collagen over here, and this collagen is gonna help thicken up your beef stock. So what I'm gonna simply do is pop this in the oven, and then we'll be right back to chop the vegetables. So while our beef bones are browning and getting a nice beautiful char in the oven, we're gonna continue with chopping up our vegetables. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab our celery and chop that up in larger chunks. And this is only because we're actually going to simmer our stock for a long period of time. So you wanna ensure that your vegetables aren't that small that they completely wilt in the stock pot. So you're just gonna go ahead with chopping up those vegetables into quite a large chunk, just like so. So I've moved on to my carrots now, and we're going in bigger chunks. So as mentioned before, this is considered as our mirepoix. A mirepoix consists of onions, celery, and carrots. Just 3 pieces of vegetables that are equal in quantity that make up a component called a mirepoix. So this will slowly unravel in the stock pot anyways, so there's no need for you to try to open the layers up. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is prepare for our bouquet garni, which is consisting of a leek that you're going to open up. You're going to take just 1 layer of your leek and use that kind of like your sachet. Bouquet garni is very helpful when trying to add in more flavor into your stock, into your soup. It can be used for many different reasons. So we're just going to bunch up your fresh pieces of thyme, some parsley stems, and not leaves, because the leaves are going to add in a lot of bitterness, and you really don't want that. We're going to take the bay leaf and again kind of make it into a smaller piece. A few pieces of black pepper and some cloves. And all we're gonna do is kind of roll this up and grab your kitchen twine and make sure to secure it with your twine. And this will help you with removing it whenever you want to without having to fish for all of the ingredients on a later stage. So just tying it with a knot. And there we have our bouquet garni ready to be used. I'm gonna set this aside. We're going to wait for our bones to completely roast, and that's gonna take between 15 to 20 minutes, dependent on how hot your oven is. We're just gonna wait for that to finish off searing, and then we're gonna start with our stock. So I have a few seconds on our beef bones in our oven. What I'm gonna do meanwhile is grab our vegetables and cover them in the tomato paste. And what's gonna happen over here is we're actually gonna pop these vegetables in the oven tray that we used for our beef bones, and we're simply going to let them roast for a while. And we're gonna take them out and combine them together in our stock pot. So I'm just gonna quickly combine all the vegetables together with the tomato paste. And take off my gloves, and we're ready to take out our beef bones from the oven. So beef bones are out. Be very careful. You do not want to kind of burn your hands because the bones are super hot, the tray is super hot. What you want to do is slowly shift them into your stock pot, being very careful. And you want to kind of reserve the oil that actually came out from your bones. So keep that. That is actually considered as liquid gold right here. So these burnt pieces, these caramelized pieces in the pan is what's actually gonna add a lot of flavor into your stock. So what you wanna do is make sure you got every single piece that's in your tray right here, right into the stock pot. So all of my bones have been transferred into my stock pot. What I'm gonna do is kind of add in just a little bit of that oil, just a little bit, and I'm gonna leave some in the actual pan. What I'm gonna do right now is transfer the vegetables that have been coated with the tomato paste into the tray and back into the oven to roast. All right, so in my stock pot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up with some water and get it up to a boil. And this is the first step to kind of clarifying your beef bones. You want to make sure that all of those beef bones are completely submerged in the water. So you'll notice a lot of gunk kind of surfaces up to the top, and what you want to do is skim that from time to time. While that happens, what you want to do is make sure you keep an eye on those vegetables. Vegetables do take short amount of time to roast. So once that is completed, what we're going to do is lower down the vegetables into the stock pot and keep it boiling. So our vegetables are almost ready to take out of the oven. What I'm going to do before taking them out of the oven is skim my beef stock over here, or actually my beef bones and water. And what you're gonna do is grab a bowl, fill it with water, and grab a spoon and easily just remove all of that gunk that arises to the top. And you wanna do this from time to time for the beginning of your stock. This is all of the impurities that you're removing very early on from the very beginning. My stock or my pot of water has come up to a boil. Keep in mind that this will be boiling for 8 hours in total. So what you want to make sure of is that you're replenishing that water from time to time. So I'm ready to set this aside. What I'm going to do is grab those vegetables that have been roasting in the oven. Right, we're going to lower them down into the stock pot. So the more charred component that you could get, or the more charred you can get your vegetables, the better. That's gonna add so much flavor into the end result. Toasting your tomato paste in the oven is key because it's going to reduce down the kind of sour component from the end result. So I'm slowly scraping the oven tray, making sure that I don't damage the oven tray. So you want those caramelized and burnt pieces, although they are not considered as burnt, but they're actually going to add in so much flavor. I'm trying not to add in so much oil into the pot. So I've got a lot of oil right here that I'm going to just get rid of it. Right. The last thing that's left to do for our beef stock is actually to lower down your bouquet garni right into your stock. Let this simmer for between 4 hours up to 8 hours. The more you can simmer it for, the better. You're going to develop so much flavor. All of that collagen is going to come out and gelatin is going to come out and produce a very, very delicious stock. So I'll see you guys back after the break and we can get started on our French onion soup. So my beef stock has been simmering for around 8 hours now. What I'm gonna do is simply just strain it through, and then we are getting ready to start with our French onion soup. So what I have done meanwhile during the 8 hours is I've actually replenished the stock with some water. So you want to make sure to strain the stock away from you and not towards you, just because there might be bits and pieces that would actually jump into the liquid and then burn you. So we're setting this aside. And just because we are actually going to use the stock for our French onion soup, what you want to do is keep it warm, but in case you want to use the stock for any other thing on any other day, you want to make sure to rapidly cool it down and put it in the fridge. So I have my pot over here ready to start on our French onion soup. For your French onion soup, what you're gonna need are some brown onions. And I have around 1 kilo of brown onions over here that are thinly sliced. You wanna go a bit extra on the onions, hence the name of the soup. What you're also gonna need is some salt, some clarified butter, and to make clarified butter, it's super easy. All you want to do is melt down your butter, skim off the first white layer, and then you have some clarified butter. I have some thinly sliced French baguette bread that has been air dried for some time, so you want to get them nice and dry. This is going to help ensure that it doesn't get soaked up into the soup. And lastly is some Gruyere grated cheese. So to start off, what you want to do is heat up your pot and add in the full amount of clarified butter that you have over here. So my butter is nice and hot. What I'm going to do is lower down all of the onions and give them a nice mix. So keeping in mind that this doesn't take that long to produce this soup. So keep in mind that you don't want to cut those onions too thick in size or even too thin in size. So what I have over here is a thinner version of the sliced onions. So I'm going to keep in mind that I have to cook this on a very high heat to achieve that browned, caramelized brown onions. to achieve it in a shorter amount of time. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna add in just a pinch of salt. What this salt is gonna do is help with releasing all of the juices and quicken the caramelizing process. I'm gonna go ahead and add a bit of cracked black pepper at this stage and get that nice and toasted up in the pot. So my onions are slowly starting to caramelize. They are taking on a nice brown golden color. I'm gonna keep this going for a little while, and then what's going to happen next is I'm slowly going to add in the beef stock into my pot. Let that simmer for just a little bit to make sure that everything is nice and flavorful, and then we're ready to finalize our soup. So at this point right now, I'm going to add in just a small amount of liquid, and be sure to stay a bit away from the pan because it is going to create a lot of heat. And you want to kind of start off by scraping the bottom of the pan to release all of those caramelized bits that are stuck to the bottom. So right after this step, what I'm gonna do is add in the stock. Make sure I've got a good amount in my pot, and I'm going to bring that up to a boil. So this is about the good amount of liquid you want to add to your pot. What I'm going to do is wait until this comes up to a proper boil, and I'm gonna lower down the temperature and let it simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes, just to gain some more flavors. I'm gonna make sure this is well seasoned, and then we are ready to plate everything together and pop it in the oven to melt the cheese. So I have had my French onion soup simmering for around 10 to 15 minutes. You want to make sure you don't want to simmer it for much longer than that, because that might risk the fact that your onions get mushy and completely dissolve into the soup. So what you want to do right now is plate it up. So I've got a bowl over here that is okay to put back into the oven, just because we are going to make sure to caramelize the top together with the cheese back into the oven. So you want to make sure that your bowl is okay to put in the oven. It is oven safe and oven proof. So I've just ladled in my soup into the soup bowl. What I'm going to do next is grab some slices of French baguette and layer that on the top. Make sure that those slices of French baguette have been dried, just because you don't want them to kind of dissolve into the soup. So I'm just gonna grab a couple, put that right on top, and then I'm gonna grab a generous amount of cheese and sprinkle that onto the top. So this is gonna go in the oven to caramelize and create a very beautiful crust. Make sure to set your oven on a broiler option to make sure you've got a very high heat on the top and not surrounding it. So I'm ready to take out the soup from the oven, which is set at a broiler setting. So you want to make sure you get a nice and golden brown at the top and the cheese is melted. So we're just going to garnish with a bit of parsley. And there you have it, your French onion soup made with a base of a beef stock from scratch. I'll see you guys next time on From Scratch.